Let's go! So, a new college football recruiting rule just dropped, and it should help LSU football out. But of course, we're going through a lot right now with Ed Orgeron. And the funny thing is, I think it is confirmed that Ed Orgeron has lost his recruiting touch. And what I'm going to tell you at the end of today's video is not really being talked about at all. And it's simply inexcusable. So let's talk about the new rule. College football transfers will be allowed to be replaced with another college football transfer. So last year, the rule was you can only sign 25 total players in each scholarship class, and that included transfers. But now, if a college football transfer on your roster happens after December 15th, that means you can replace that player with a transfer from another school and it not count against your 25 scholarship limit. So in other words, you could sign up to 32 players, and that's if, of course, LSU or just any school has 7 players that decide to transfer. Looking at how LSU's roster shapes up right now, I can easily see that happening, especially now that a lot of true freshmen are taking a bunch of the snaps from older players. In other words, last year when LSU lost Dare Rosenthal, it was late in the process. It really hurt the roster. It really hurt the team. Well, with the new rules, when you lose a player to the transfer portal, you are allowed to replace that player with another transfer. Now, here's the thing. LSU could have gotten a player to fill in for Dare Rosenthal. The issue, though, was the class of 2021 was already filled with the 25 slots. Now, that is no longer the case. LSU would have been able to go out and get another player. Now, if any of that confuses you, once again, please comment down below, because guess what? I'm still learning about this new rule, and there are some external factors that do apply to LSU specifically with the new rule that we will get to in just a second. But first, let's talk about what the immediate impact of that will be for the class of 2022. So right now, LSU 15 hard commits, nationally ranked number 8, but this is a number you should really pay attention to, 15. The reason why this number is so important is because now you can fill the 25 players in your recruiting classes with all high school guys. So in the past, LSU would have to play, some serious roster management, high wire act limbo, because you would have to at least leave 2 or 3 slots for potential transfer portal players. But now, especially when you look at LSU's roster, a lot of younger guys are starting to play over some older guys. You would expect that those older guys are going to transfer. I think it is safe to assume that at least 7 LSU players that are on scholarship right now, on the roster right now, will hit the transfer portal. So those 7 players you can use on all transfers, and you can fill this 25 hard cap with all high school recruits. Now, why is that important, especially at a school like LSU? Well, LSU has the Louisiana 3 stars, right? We've talked about it a lot on this channel, how Louisiana 3 stars hit at a higher rate than 3 stars from other states. And it makes a lot of sense. You look at, obviously, the famous LSU 3 stars, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jacob Hester, Morris Claiborne, Justin Jefferson, whoever you want to mention. There are so many 3 stars in this class that I hear about from you guys that you believe should be offered even before this rule was in place. Now, expect a lot of those guys to get offers. Say a guy like Jordan Allen, who is currently committed to Penn State, or Landon Ibieta, or I hope I'm saying that kid's name correctly. A lot of you like him a lot. Whoever you want to mention, that means that you can be a little bit more aggressive with your offers for those types of players, or just lower ranked players in general, and it allows you just to be more aggressive overall to get the 25 best high school recruits you could possibly get. And I would be very aggressive right now, because other elite schools are going to do the same thing now that they don't have to leave slots open for the transfer portal. So I think for LSU specifically, that is huge because I really do believe there are some 3-star difference makers that may or may not already be committed to other schools that might change their mind if LSU changes their tenor towards them. Now, there's 2 more external factors you have to take into consideration. The first is that LSU has a weird scholarship total limit. So LSU is only allowed to have 81 scholarship players this next season because of these self-sanctioned rules. Normally, college football players or teams are allowed to have 85 scholarship players. Well, a lot of you remember the Vidal Alexander Odell Beckham thing. LSU self-imposed penalties on themselves, and now they can't have more than 81. Now, I don't know if 81 is the hard number because there was the pandemic year with players getting extra eligibility, and it fluctuated the amount of total scholarship players you can have on a team. So I don't know if 81 is the dead set number, but the bottom line is LSU does have that 4 scholarship penalty. And what I did was I went through the LSU roster and counted about anywhere from 63 to 67 scholarship players that will be back to next season. That will be back for next season. Now, the reason why it is 63 to 67 is because some players are going to have to make some NFL decisions. So I didn't include a guy like Derek Stingley, who we know is going to be gone, so on and so on. Guys that you assume that will move on. So let's take Micah Baskerville, for instance. He is a senior, but he will have 1 more year of eligibility if he decides to use it. So that's the thing. It's going to take some roster massaging, in other words, to figure that out, because LSU scholarship limits are going to be severely affected by that, especially now that you're going to be able to bring in 32 new players. And as many of you know, just looking at the LSU roster as a whole, there are a lot of scholarship players on the team that do not contribute, that are older players that you can pretty much say probably aren't going to end up being contributors for your team. So that's where it gets a little tricky as far as your scholarship management is concerned. So keep that in mind. And then the number 2 thing is we don't know what the heck is even going to happen to Ed Orgeron. And that's obviously going to affect a lot of the kids' decisions of what they're going to do, whether it be high school players or transfers deciding to come to LSU or just players that are currently on the roster. Which leads us to this story about Ed Orgeron. So really quickly, we have a Walker Howard injury update. For those that don't know, this past Friday, Walker Howard had a little bit of a nick-up. He's going to miss a few games, and according to Walker's Twitter, he will be back. Once again, that's some really, really good news. And hopefully Walker is fully healthy because he is the future of the LSU football program. I do have to share this story. And look, it may not be that big of a deal to you, but I feel as if what happened this past Saturday in Tiger Stadium is inexcusable. So this is Jaden Wayne, a 5-star defensive lineman out of the state of Washington, who Andre Carter likes a lot. Now, he is a part of the class of 2023, and full disclosure, class of 2022 is more important because it is the more immediate class. But when a 5-star defensive lineman from Tacoma, Washington, you're looking at his recruiting profile right now, flies all the way down to Baton Rouge on an unofficial visit, you should make it a priority to meet with Wayne and his family to make them feel comfortable. Now, I was reading Go247, and there was an article about Jaden Wayne's visit, and I saw that Ed Orgeron didn't actually meet with Jaden Wayne, which is kind of wild. So here's the thing. I don't know if Coach O wasn't able to meet with any of the recruits. I don't know. There could have been something that popped up. I just find this whole thing to be very fascinating. Okay, now, full disclosure. coaches have really busy days on game day. It's really hard to meet with each and every recruit, and there was an obscene amount of recruits there. So for those that don't know, recruits visiting stadiums isn't as easy as you probably think it is, because these recruits play on Friday night, and traveling to whichever stadium the next day can be brutal. That's the big benefit, though, of an 8 p.m. kickoff, is that it gives recruits plenty of time to travel. And Jaden Wayne and his family decided, look, an unofficial visit, we'll have plenty of time to where we can fly all the way from Washington down. I don't know their exact travel logistics, and get to experience Tiger Stadium at night, which they did. And full disclosure, Jaden Wayne said he had an awesome time and that he met with Andre Carter, and that is absolutely fantastic. Now, this isn't an indictment on LSU football at all. This is an indictment of Ed Orgeron, because he did not meet with Jaden Wayne face-to-face at all. Now, hear me out. Once again, the class of 2022 is more important because it is a more immediate class. And, of course, it's hard. A coach has to worry about focusing in on coaching against Auburn, an SEC rival, in a competitive game. I totally get it. But if a guy from 2 time zones over, from the state of Washington, and by the way, this isn't some scrub 3-star. This is a 5-star defensive lineman, class of 2023. So when Mason Smith is getting ready to go to the NFL, we'll have Jaden Wayne ready to take his place, or whoever. That's someone that you have to, at the very least, shake their hand for 30 seconds. You have to establish that relationship and go to the family and say, look, I would have loved to have spent more time with you. Obviously, let's just schedule a visit down the road so we could show you all around. We're so happy to have you. And that didn't happen, according to the 247 post and a different source that I spoke to on the subject matter. And that's not good, okay? Now, once again, I defend Ed Orgeron. Game days are hectic. It's really hard to meet with everyone and make everybody happy. But if they are flying out of pocket to come all the way down there, they would probably expect to get a handshake from the coach. So that's where, things get a little tricky, because, maybe Ed Orgeron sees the writing on the raw wall, and he's not recruiting as hard, because that just seems crazy, because Ed Orgeron is known for not only recruiting, but recruiting defensive linemen, especially knowing Ed Orgeron's knowledge of the West Coast. Bad oversight right there by O. Now, once again, I could be wrong on this. O might have met with Jaden Wayne. But 2 different sources is just not going to be wrong on that. I just think that that's not good. That's not good. And if O doesn't turn this around and the new coach comes in, there's going to be a lot of work to be done. And that transfer portal is going to be lit. And we're going to need those 7 slots to field what could be a very different looking team next year. So all of that needs to start right now, because that just sounds like a major oversight from a coach who we all view as a recruiting expert. Hope you enjoyed this video today. And as always, we're going to keep this train moving, baby. Subscribe. Let's do it. Let's go. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Come on, Jaden. Come to LSU. You know you want to. And we're doing some lemon pepper chicken wings tonight. Let's